Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for having this very, very important hearing, and I do appreciate all of your all's efforts. Ms. Pape and Ms. Ho, as the law currently stands, veterans who receive a housing voucher through the Housing and Urban Development Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, HUD-VASH, program are not considered to be homeless because technically they have housing and thus are ineligible to participate in the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, HVRP, which I understand is a Department of Labor program, but it falls within Title 38 and is therefore within the jurisdiction of this committee. Senator Tester and I have introduced legislation S-425, which reauthorizes HVRP for an additional 5 years and also clarifies that veterans who participate in the HUD-VASH program can still participate in HVRP. It's my firm belief that the two programs are very complementary. It's difficult for a veteran to focus on learning the skills needed to find and maintain employment if they are homeless, and providing housing without teaching job skills only perpetuates the cycle of homelessness. So I guess my question is, does VA and HUD support changing the law to allow veterans participating in HUD-VASH to also participate in HVRP?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. It's a great question. The way that the different eligibility criteria between program work is oftentimes counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish in the long run. I would defer to my colleagues at the Department of Labor on the nuances of the eligibility, but absolutely the ability to get employment assistance to veterans who become housed is critical, both in terms of their long-term self-sufficiency, but also just their recovery and well-being. And so anything that we can do to enhance employment services for veterans once they're housed would be terrific, and I would be more than happy to work with you and our colleagues at the VA and the Department of Labor on the details of that.
Absolutely concur with what Ms. Ho is saying, and know that targeted programs for homeless veterans in employment is very necessary, because remember, our veterans, our average age is about 53 years old, and they have spent several years on the streets, so they're not used to getting up and going to a job. So anything that can target homeless for employment is a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, it's really kind of crazy. I mean, it's a catch-22 situation. I mean, you provide them a benefit where they're not, they're in housing for a period of time, and yet then they don't have any benefits to get the skills that they need so that they can actually do their own housing. And so we really would appreciate working with you guys. Ms. Pape, there was a VA OIG report issued in December 2014 about the National Call Center for Homeless Veterans. Let me give you some of the highlights. In fiscal year 13, 79,500 homeless veterans contacted the call center. 27% of callers left messages because counselors were unable to take the calls. The IG identified 40,500 missed opportunities, which is a majority, where the call center did not refer veterans to medical facilities or closed referrals without verifying that the veterans had received the VA services that they needed. There was also $267,000 in funding that was inappropriately spent. Oftentimes, one of the biggest hurdles to helping a homeless veteran is getting them to make contact. And as you mentioned, as we've discussed, many of these individuals are mentally ill, have a variety of problems. I mean, how do you call back, somebody that's homeless? So I guess the question is, since the VA OIG report was issued, can you comment about what's being done to fix the problem? And can you tell us now what the percentage of incoming calls are being answered at this point in time?
So absolutely, and thank you for the question. Since the IG report came out, the call center was originally organized under the Veterans Crisis Line, so the suicide hotline and the homeless call center were organized together. That call center has been moved out from under the crisis line and moved to our health resource section, where they already run 4 other crisis or hotlines, phone lines. So they run a benefits line, a pharmacy line, I can't, it's escaping me, another line, a pharmacy line, and then the homeless call center. So that has improved our ability to respond to calls already.
So do we have a percentage of calls that are actually being answered that for homeless people calling in?
We do. So 95% of the calls are being answered. So instead of an answering machine, they got rid of the answering machine. They now have a queuing system so that if somebody is waiting for a call, it goes to the next available caller, like all the call lines we've had before. So 95% are getting responded to at this point.
Good. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. And Mr. Chairman, we really need to follow up on that in the future and kind of hawk that as to what's going on. And again, I know that you all are working hard in this regard. And the good thing about that is you've got all these people calling in. I mean, we're doing something right along that, but it's kind of like the other situation that we've got with the benefit of some housing and then you lose benefits on the other. We've simply got to, we've got to solve the problems that we create by doing some good things. Sometimes it creates other problems. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.